hatred, revenge, and deceit. This story is the trifecta of wild events. It's about a 21-year-old female who seemingly has her entire life ripped apart. What happens over this course of this story gets crazier and crazier. My name's Mr. Reddito, and today I have two stories for you. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing as we read daily stories. Here comes story number one. My name's Lily. I'm 21 years old, and as of 3 years ago, an orphan. That isn't exactly true. My biological parents are dead, but I still have a stepdad. A stepdad who, for lack of a better word, loathes me. He wasn't always like this, you understand. When he and my late mother had first married just after my 14th birthday, he'd showered me with love and affection, something that I've never received from my biological father. My father had run off 3 years after I've been born, having fallen in love with another woman. I'd been thrilled to have a new dad. Hearing that I was to have a new sister as well had me over the moon with happiness. Amanda, or Mandy as I grew to call her, was 3 years younger than me and cute as a button. My stepdad had never distinguished between me and her, and for the next 6 years my life had been the epitome of happiness. I had had everything I could possibly dream of. A loving family, a childhood playmate, being an only child that had been particularly important to me, and a father that was actually present in my life. My mother soon started an online cosmetic company. Seeing as she did not have to raise a child alone anymore, my stepdad had been a most supportive husband and had happily taken over household duties, while working from home for a logistics company. My mother had always been a brilliant, business-minded woman. Excellent market research along with a keen eye for advertising. That would soon elevate her business from a small online shop to a well-known, reputable brand. She'd opened stores in 8 cities all around the country and had plans to go global. Over the span of 4 years, she had launched a lipstick, foundation, and skincare line. She had drawn up plans to launch a perfume line as well. Before her plans could reach fruition, however, the COVID global pandemic hit hard, forcing businesses to downsize or basically completely shut down. Things continued much the same for my mother's company, and online sales had skyrocketed, owing to the large number of people who had turned to social media as a way to escape the boredom of staying at home. Beauty influencers have started popping up by the dozens, and my mother's product would run out as soon as they hit the shelf. My stepdad, however, had not been so lucky. His company decided to downsize 2 months after the pandemic started, and he was laid off, stuck at home with 2 teenagers, one in college and another in high school, and an extremely busy wife who had started working long hours due to her business popularity. It took its toll on him. The frustration of being unemployed, coupled with the lockdown, made him angry and resentful. He started resenting my mother, her success, and the fact that she put food on the table while he was unable to. It made him so angry and resentful. He had not had much time to stew in this newfound misery, however. My mother had been forced to make a cross-country trip, going to open a new store that had been planned before the pandemic. She's been gone for a week, and it was in her absence that I had first noticed the change in my stepdad. He would get snap and snarl at me, but was careful not to do so in presence of my sister. It's been these little things, microaggression, that seared themselves into my mind. I hadn't much time to dwell on it or talk to my mother about my father's changed behavior. A week after she came back, she developed a dry cough and disturbingly high fever. We'd rushed her to the hospital, only to discover that she had contracted COVID. She was admitted to the hospital due to worsening symptoms and even spent a few days on the ventilator. It was the worst few weeks of my life. Regular visits to my ailing mother and juggling hospital bills and college were extremely hard. My stepdad was careful to play the doting husband and father in front of others, but at home, When we were alone with no one else around, he was strangely indifferent to our predicament. I caught him going through my mother's home office once he had thought that my sister and I were visiting our mother at the hospital. Once again, I put his odd behavior out of my mind, too concerned about my mother to care about much else. She was discharged about a month after admission and rapidly regained her health, thankfully. The experience, however, changed her. The doctors informed us that her immunity had been severely compromised, and her future risk of contracting pulmonary infections had increased multifold. Well, a month after she was discharged, she contracted pneumonia. The condition proved to be fatal. Her condition deteriorated rapidly over the course of 7 days, and she died in her sleep one rainy morning. Devastated, I succumbed to my grief. It was only a month later, after the funeral, that I found out my mother had left the larger portion of her wealth to me. Approximately 70% of her assets and all marital wealth had been left to me, with the remainder going to my stepdad. A small number of bequests had been made to the members of her family. It was a fine sunny day when the will was read. The executor of the will, an old friend of my mother's, had visited us at our house in the suburbs. It was hard to recall all the fine details of his visit, but I fully remember the part where he announced to whom the shares of the company would go. Shuffling a sheet of paper, he had peered over the top of his glasses. "Right. I'm assuming all you know that your mother had controlling shares in the company. An estimated 50%. Of those 50%, 15 has been left to you," he indicated to my stepdad, "and 36% have been left to her daughter, Lily." A prolonged silence had followed this announcement. Her stepdad gaped at my sister and me, and then the lawyer as if she misheard. "And Mandy?" he gestured to his daughter. "What about her? What did Maria leave her? Cash?" The lawyer frowned down to his bundle of papers, shuffling and pursuing them rapidly. "Oh, yes, I suppose there's a small sum of $10,000 that is bequeathed to Miss Amanda. But I believe that's it." "And what about the rest of it? The liquid shares, the investment, the money in her bank accounts? Where will that go?" My stepdad's voice rose incredulously. Clearing his throat, the lawyer turned to me. "Well, all of those go to Miss Lily." "That's impossible," my stepdad exploded. The lawyer signed and got up. "I'll give you and your family time to come to terms with the contents of the will. Excuse me, I'll see myself out." As soon as the lawyer turned around and left, my stepdad rounded on me. "What's the meaning of this unfairness?" Amanda held up her hands, plaintively. "Dad, it's all right. Mom must have had her reasons, and besides, I don't want anything. I have you guys. That's enough for me." I moved to console her. "I'm sorry, Mandy. I don't know why—" She covered my hand at that moment with her own and smiled bracingly. "It's all right, sis. Truly, I don't mind." My stepdad looked like he wanted to talk further on the matter, but Mandy held up a hand and excused herself. Things been strange in our house for the next few months, with my stepdad's mood taking a turn for the worse. I buried myself in college studies to escape my grief, and as soon as the lockdown was lifted, I went back to my school-college dorm, where I resided before the start of COVID. Fast forward to about a year later, and my mother's lawyer, who had since then become my lawyer, contacted me completely out of the blue. He informed me that my stepdad had recently applied in a court of law to manage my shares till I turned 21, which would be in about a year and a half, citing the reason I'd be free to finish my college life before having to manage a multinational company. It was only then that saw him for who he was, a greedy man who hoped to profit off my mother's inheritance. Furious, I contacted my stepdad at once, accusing him of trying to steal my inheritance. He attempted to gaslight me, claiming that I'm too young and inexperienced to know anything about the company being ran, and the business needed a firm hand, his hand, to steer it in the right direction. I refused to believe him and warned him not to attempt anything of the sort again. He flew into a rage, claiming that it was unfair of me to keep all the money to himself, while Mandy had none. During this time, I kept in contact with Mandy, who had never shown any signs to avert hostility towards me. We would often call each other to rant about our lives, me about the boredom I experienced in college and getting used to living away from home, and her about high school and occasionally her father. Shortly before my 20th birthday, I met Luke. He was a business major at the same college as me. He was about a year younger than me and was brilliant and funny. He was polite, well-mannered, and we hit it off right away. I luckily had the foresight to never mention much about my family or my inheritance to anyone in college. Consequently, I never had to worry about people trying to worm their way into my life because of my money or social status. Similarly, Luke had no idea of my net worth, and I was keen to keep it that way. Soon, we became inseparable. He had a genius intellect and was always talking about ideas for startups that he would love to attempt when he graduated. We had much of the same taste in food and music, and both of us loved watching classic movies. He was an attractive, respectful boyfriend, and his presence dulled the ache that had been present in my chest since my mother died. He made me feel less alone in the world, and soon I loved him with all my heart. I could never keep anything secret from Mandy, and I soon told her of our blossoming romance. She was thrilled for me and soon persuaded me to let her meet him. They hit it off at once. I was ecstatic that my sister and my boyfriend got along so well. Life seemed to be going great. I was acing all my college classes, had a fantastic and loving relationship, and was helping my sister apply to colleges near me so we could stay together. Luke would soon propose. I was overjoyed to accept the proposal, and I could not believe my luck to have found such a perfect life partner. Well, guys, everything came crashing down when my sister got rejected from all the colleges she applied. The only college she was accepted into was in another state. I was devastated for her. My stepdad, after he found out, completely changed his tune. He'd been distant and aloof with me the past couple of years, but welcomed me back warmingly the next time I went home on college break. Over the next couple days, I found out why. He wanted me to transfer ownership of one of the houses that my mom had left me to my sister. It was in the same state that my sister was going to attend college in the fall. I flat out refused. More out of principle than anything. I was prepared to pay my sister's college fees if I had to, but I didn't feel right parting with my house my mother left me. My stepdad got increasingly angry, calling me all sorts of names and hurling abuses at me. He accused me of being ungrateful for his kindness all these years, and told me I was a terrible human being who had no regard or care for their sister. Soon after, my sister knocked on my bedroom door, asking to talk, with tears in her eyes. She said that she had defended me to my stepdad all of these years, and I couldn't even give her a house to call her own. She said she was tired of living here with her father, who grew more unhinged by the day. She said that moving across the country would be stressful enough without having to worry about finances and the stress of living in a college dorm. I bit back a retort about how I managed it just fine for the last few years. I thought about everything she's done for me, all the times that she's been there for me like family always was. We might not be related by blood, but we had always been closer than actual siblings I'd seen. Determined not to let her down, I contacted my lawyer the next day, asking him the details about the ownership transfer and how long it would take. I had intended to surprise my sister and had told her I was going to meet an old friend and would be home till dinner. I returned home just after 2 o'clock and was shocked to see Luke's car parked outside. I've never told him where I lived. I crept up the driveway, careful not to pass across the window on the front side of the house. The front door completely unlocked, as it usually was. Voices coming out of the living room. "I think we got this in the bag, Dad," Mandy was saying in a voice completely unlike her own. "She bought my crying, pleading act in hook, line, and sinker."
Huh, that's great news, babe.
That was Luke's voice. What was my fiancé doing here? He continued,
Ugh, I can't stand her. Mandy, being around her's torture. All I can think about is when I'm around her is you. I know we agreed to make her fall in love with me so we can get married, so I can trick her out of her money, but I can't take it anymore. I don't know how I'll tolerate being married to her.
Ah, boy, we'll have to do what we must do, came my stepdad's gravelly voice.
This wouldn't be a problem if that witch wife of mine had left us a bigger share of all that wealth her daughter's now hoarding like a dragon. It's insane how people turn out these days. I was married to her for half a decade, and she still left my daughter out of the will. Who took care of the kids when she wasn't here? Me. I should have more than some measly shares of the company.
I had enough. Eyes brimming with tears, I stole upstairs and grabbed everything of value, material or sentimental, that I owned. I snuck out through the back door. Distraught with grief, I booked a hotel halfway across the city and called my lawyer. Explaining the situation to him, I asked him to send an eviction notice to my stepdad and sister, asking them to vacate the premises of my house. I sent along a detailed voice note to them next, telling them that I heard everything and to never contact me again. Mailing my engagement ring back to my lying piece of crap fiancé was the next thing I did. Soon thereafter, I cut all contact with those I had once called my family. I know it'll take a long time to get over what they've done to me, but I'm not interested in closure. I know that my emotional scars will heal, one day at a time, and I'll find people along the way I can start a new family with. Hey, what's up guys, Mr. Reddito here. So, to enable us to continue making videos for you guys, we got a brand deal. So, I want to mention that now. How many of you wish there was a better solution to paying off your debt? Our sponsor, PDS Debt, has customized 0% interest options for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. Because of the tough few years from COVID-19, certain types of debit can be reduced or paid much faster while saving you thousands in interest. PDS Debt is giving our qualified listeners a free debt savings analysis just for completing the 30-second online assessment at pdsdebt.com/Reddito. You'll receive a full breakdown on how to save on interest each month and the quickest way to take care of your debt. If you're making payments every month on your debt and your balances aren't going down, this program's for you. PDS Debt rolls all of your payments into one low, zero-interest monthly payment. Everyone with over $10,000 or more in debt qualifies. There's no minimum credit score required. Bad and fair credit are both accepted. Save thousands in interest and fees. Pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. Guys, that's PDS Debt, and we're offering free debt analysis to our listeners just for completing the quick and easy assessment at pdsdebt.com/Reddito. That's pdsdebt.com/Reddito. Take back your financial freedom today by visiting pdsdebt.com/Reddito. Now back to our story. So towards the end of that story, it took a wild turn. I cannot personally believe everything OP had to go through. In my opinion, it was a horrible life. The fact at the end that even her fiancé, who she thought was inseparable from, backstabbed her the most. Let me know what you guys make of this story in the comment section down below. Which character do you think was the most vile and the most evil? I would love to hear your answer. We still have one more story left in today's video. My name's Mr. Reddito. I hope you're enjoying, and let's hop right into that story. I'm a 30-year-old male and I got married 2 weeks ago. I was married before, but it ended after I found out that my older brother Thomas, who's 34, got involved with my first wife. It was devastating because we were close and had a great relationship. I also helped him so much while he was struggling, and seeing how he repaid me hurts me to this day. I stopped talking to him, and Mom and Dad forced me to keep it a secret. And because, well, I was too weak to argue with them, I just kept my distance. Then I met my now wife. My family loved and embraced her as their own. Mom and Dad treat her like a queen, which helped repair and solidified my relationship with them. However, as the wedding was approaching, they told me they expected me to invite Thomas. I, of course, refused. But they kept guilting me about what the relatives and other guests would think and say when they don't see Thomas there. I fought with them about it to the day of the wedding. Turned out they invited him behind my back, but I found out and stopped them just in time. They came to the wedding looking mad, asking what we were going to tell people when they ask about Thomas. I told them I'd take care of it. And what I did was take a moment while everyone was paying attention, grabbed the microphone and flat out announced this and said, quote, "The reason I did not invite Thomas to my wedding is because I was worried he'd steal my now wife, just like he stole the first one." I said it playfully not to make it sound so tense, but most of the guests looked shocked and started mumbling. Then it went awkwardly quiet for a moment. Then we moved on, but I saw Mom and Dad walk out while looking at me grudgingly. Later, they started lashing out about how I just exposed Thomas and caused him to be shunned by the family in the most hideous of ways. I told them I already said I did not want him there, yet they tried to push him on me, repeatedly saying, quote, "What are people going to say?" So I told them the reason why he isn't there in a playful way, but I guess they still got the message. Mom started yelling about how everyone will now look down on Shun Thomas. She called me pathetic and cruel for still punishing him and gradually ruining his life, despite him apologizing and trying to reconcile, but in my opinion, some things are just unforgivable. We've been on horrible terms since then, so guys, am I the a-hole? My wife said at least now they're off my back about what people would say about not inviting him. I don't know about you guys, but man, that announcement would have made me feel great. Honestly, screw Thomas, and excuse my language, but I think he deserves to be shunned by the family because what he did is repulsive, and I'm glad OP finally got it off his chest and told the family. But anyways, it's his wedding day, he can do as he pleases. I hope the mom and dad do forgive him, but we'll see as time goes by. Let me know exactly what you guys would have done. Would you have invited Thomas to the wedding? Would you have kicked him out? Or would you have told the parents they're out of their mind? Guys, that's all the stories I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed the content. Subscribe to the channel because there's plenty more to come.